like a baby bird waiting for the information to be poured upon you. Here it is. Here it is. This is the SitRep for the 12th of May, 2022. My name is Stuart, and this is Ragnarok Survival. In case you didn't know where you were stumbling blind through the wilderness that is the internet, and you found yourself in a clearing with a strange bearded man talking at you. Well, that's me. So, for those of you who haven't been here before, this is where I talk about news stories that I have come across in the past 24 hours that I think is interesting from the perspective of prepping and how we can better prepare ourselves for the impending, possible doom that is coming our way. No, it's not doom. It's not doom. It's just some hard times, I think, that are coming our way, that our world is rapidly changing and we need to adapt and change to it. Is there a burning bush also? Possibly. I don't know. I haven't got that far through the Bible yet. No, I'm joking. I've read the Bible. As a non-Christian, I have read it. Okay, so what are we going to start off with today? A couple of little tidbits of interesting stuff that I think we need to have a look at and go, that's interesting. Some reporting on China. China accelerates nuclear buildup. This is actually old reporting that's been recycled again. I love how the news cycle does this. And I think it's something that we should be very cognizant of, how much they pump news stories and then recycle them as if it's a new thing. China's done something else. They haven't done anything else. They're doing exactly what they said they were doing a week ago, which is increasing their nuclear arsenal and possibly their ability. So that's happening, but this is back in the news. So again, why is this back in the news? Why are we reading about this again? China accelerates nuclear buildup and military modernization. Biden speeding US to defeat. What's Biden doing compared to what China's doing? It seems like China has from the outside at least, a very focused path in what they're doing. And they're laying that groundwork towards moving into Taiwan. And I've said this before, not necessarily from a military standpoint, but maybe from just a pressure standpoint, where it's going to get to such a point that they kind of just go, and Taiwan is ours. Thank you. That's, I think, what they're primarily trying to do and what they would prefer to do. So, but they're also backing it up with military might. Violence is golden. Violence is the gold standard across the world. That's not my words. That is Jack Donovan, who is an author, which I think people should check out. I quite like his works. Anyway, violence is golden. I've also got a video on YouTube on my channel, which is talking about violence, why that is the standard in which our government system actually works by and which our whole society is underpinned by. White matters. And it's just the truth of it. So in the same way that money makes sense because we have a gold standard behind it, government pressure, government decisions make sense because we have a violence standard. And that's exactly what China is demonstrating here. They're saying, hey, we're going to try and envelop, Taiwan's ours. I don't know why you're saying anything different. That's essentially what China's saying. Morning, Ben. How you doing? Bonnie, sorry. Misread that. Good morning, Bonnie, on the YouTubes. So, yeah, they're saying, hey, we're going to do this. They're going to just sort of envelop it. They're going to use coercion. They're going to use pressure. They're going to use all other means. But they're also building their military. So if push comes to shove, these aren't empty promises. This is not a paper tiger that we're dealing with here. This is an actual tiger. Just so everyone's aware, China's making it very, very overt that they are building all the big guns. So that's happening in the world, and I think it's just yet another thing that's leading us down this path into conflict within the South China Sea, within our backyard here in Australia. So it will affect us, and we really need to start thinking about that as Aussies, how we best prepare ourselves. Again, trying to be more self-reliant, trying to be more self-responsible, I guess, would be the way to put it. Not relying on all the other systems that our government puts out there and the world puts out there. Bring it back down to us, bring it back down to our community. All right, so what I'm going to harp on a lot about today, there's some cyber stuff that I'll touch on, but mainly it's about shortages today. Again, more shortages. No, it's the same old shortages. And I keep harping on about this because the system is actually building with pressure as far as I'm looking at it. The system, the global system, supply chain systems, food systems, energy systems, they are collapsing, and we are putting in stock gaps. We're slapping little band-aids on these things, on these little things, and it's just building the pressure within the system to a point where it's just not going to be able to hold, and it's going to sort of like deflate, and we're going to have less in the future, or it's going to go fucking nuclear. It's going to explode, and there's going to be a lot of people in a lot of hurt. So where do we start with this morning? All right, let's try and get our head around the European situation that's going on here, because there's a number of factors here, but it's mainly around this Russian gas. Okay, so what's happening on the Russian gas? There's a couple of stories here to come out about it in the last 24 hours. We have ministers, we have energy chiefs, we have people from multiple countries, from Germany, from UK, I think there was one from France as well, who are warning, look, we're coming into summer right now. If things keep going the way they're going, come November this year, we're not going to see people hurting. We're going to see people dying, because it gets cold in Europe, in case you don't know. And one of the main ways that they heat themselves at the moment isn't through chopping down trees and burning wood. It's through gas. It's through Russian gas. So they're looking at huge amounts. Scottish Power CEO Keith Anderson has warned that rising gas prices could drive energy bills to nearly £3,000 in October. £3,000. To put that in your Australian dollaroos, you're looking at, when it comes to pounds, almost double, I think, still, or it's about 60, 65, bouncing somewhere around there. I haven't checked it lately, but let's just say double. So let's just say like 6,000 Australian dollaroos per bill. So you're talking quarter, right? Who can afford that? Put your hands up right now if you can afford that. My hands are down. They're all the way down. There's no way I could be like, oh, $6,000 for this electricity bill? Yeah, no worries, I'll pay that. Or $6,000 for this gas bill? Yeah, I'll go to that. Not going to happen. That will break people. Why do they think it's going to be such an exorbitant amount? Because that's where it's actually trending. British households have already seen the energy costs rise by £700 between October and April. So we're talking like a spread of 6 months here, 6-7 months, where it's gone up £700. And if we look at the graph, it's doing this. It's not going like that. It's going like that. So could their energy bills hit £3,000? Could do. That's a lot of money. But even if it's not £3,000, who can sustainably pay £700? So $1,400 Oz dollaroos. Who could pay that extra on top of your bill? If your bill went up from October to now by $1,400, could you afford that? I'd be hurting, that's for sure. So, they're not looking at a good spot. What's driving the price? There's a number of factors that are driving the price, but no surprise what the main factor is here, that, a supply chain shortage, as in the gas coming out of Russia. They're trying to slap sanctions on it. On top of that, they're trying to put costs onto the producer to import it into Europe. But that's just going to, if you're trying to do that, the end user always ends up paying more. That's the way it's always worked. It's never not done that. So yeah, by slapping these sorts of things on to Russia, or the Russian companies, I should say, exporting this sort of stuff, it will end up being the end user who would actually cost more, and that's what we're actually seeing here. So, what else is happening with this gas? I should have put these in order again, but I didn't. Okay. It will make it hard winter. There's another story on LNG crisis. There's a lot of stories about this. I can't find where it is. Okay, I can't find this story, but essentially what it is that one of the main points that this Russian gas comes into Europe is through, surprise, surprise, Ukraine. Now, I've said this before. I've been to war. I've been in war. I've been in a place that people think of as an utter war zone, Afghanistan. Spent a lot of time there, and I can tell you that it's not 100% war in 100% of the country 100% of the time. It's a little bit of war in spots here and there, and that's what's happening in the Ukraine at the moment. There's bits that they're going, and it could be that yes, these pipelines being affected, but I doubt it. I seriously doubt it that that's happening. So what's happened overnight is the Ukraine, or it was actually yesterday, Ukraine came out, the people who are in charge of this juncture, and said, yep, we're turning it off. And they just turned it off straight. Like they were just like, hey, we're turning this off. You've got 24 hours of gas left. Good luck. And people in Europe were like, whoa, 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 don't do that. Don't do that. We kind of need that. And they said, oh, we can't. It's Russians. Russians are affecting the supply line. So some European watchdogs and officials have come in and said, no, they're not. What are you talking about? Russia's come in and said, we're not. What are you talking about? And the Ukrainians said, yep, it's the Russians. It's the Russians. This is like, it's so clear what's going on here. These Ukrainians are going, look, we need more help. We need more money. We need more people in here. We need to actually increase this war and make people really serious about it, because I feel like the sentiment is waning. Hey, let's turn off their gas. Yeah, it's the Russians. It's the Russians. Come in and help us. Give us more money. The Russians have turned off your gas. Like, I smell bullshit. I smell a lot of bullshit in this one. Maybe it is the Russians. I don't know. I'm not there. It just looks pretty convenient to me for a country that all of a sudden went, hey, we need about 15 billion in the next month to keep going. And if we don't get it, like bad things are going to happen. Oh, look, here's a bad thing that happened. No gas to you guys. Oh, SARS. Better come in and help us. Better pay us more money. It's kind of like this mafia sort of setup that I'm seeing here. Anyway, so that's another complicating factor. If you're not reading between the lines of this, I don't know how people aren't seeing this, because there's this whole thing like sanctions, bang. There's no gas coming into Europe anymore. We've stopped Russian gas, so we're hurting them. And if you watch the Western media, you're like, yeah, oh wow, yeah, you turned off the gas and you're hurting Russia. They're collapsing. So why would you care if they turn off this faucet here? You are getting Russian gas. That's why you care. That's interesting. And that was backed up by another couple of stories that came out from a couple of sources that said, yep, there's one company came out and said, yeah, we're buying gas in rubles. We're doing it. I think it was the third biggest gas importer into Germany. Said, yep, we're buying it in rubles. We're doing that. What do you want us to do? You're not giving us any other option to buy gas from anywhere. We can't. We have to buy it from here right now. So give us some other gas and we'll do it. But in the interim, we're buying in rubles. We're doing that. It's come out that they're not the only one. That in fact, there may be many, many, many companies who are actually already got Russian ruble accounts that they are buying from Gazprom Russian gas. So that's why this actually matters to people. That's why people weren't just like, okay, you've turned it off. Who cares? We're getting our LNG from Africa or from the US. No big deal. But they're not doing that. They're screaming and they're saying people are going to die come winter. So why I'm saying all this, what does this have to do with anything? What does this got to do with the price of fish? Who is John Galt, right? Well, here's what it's got to do with things, is that this picture that we're being told of Russia capitulating, Russia being crushed by sanctions is total bullshit. Russia is clearly selling gas into Europe. People are still clearly buying it in rubles and buying up the ruble. But on top of that, these people are looking at the forecast of LNG and they're saying, oh, this is going to be bad for a month. They're not saying that. They're not saying, oh, this is going to be bad for the next couple of days or the week or the month or 2-3 months. They're saying people are going to hurt come winter. Just to put it in people's minds, in Europe, in the Northern Hemisphere, winter means December. Okay, we're in May right now. So they're saying that without Russian gas, people are going to be hurting in 6 months' time. That's a long time. That's a long time where they could put in infrastructure to be pulling in gas, or systems at least, not infrastructure, but systems to be pulling in gas from Africa and the US. So why are they worried about that? That's telling me that there is a bigger problem here, that they know fundamentally that it will not work, that something they're doing is not going to work, and it's not going to work for at least six probably 12 months. By the looks of it, if they're worried about winter. So big problems in the US. Imagine what this for the end user, for the Joes and Jills, or if you're in Germany, I guess you're Josef and Ilya. What's it going to mean to them? Higher prices, as we can see, as the Scottish was he minister or CEO or something like that, came out and said people are going to be paying through the nose for energy. But accessibility, will they even be able to get it? I would be pretty worried if I was in Europe right now and I was reliant on gas. I would be doing a lot to become non-reliant on gas. I would be storing up gas if I could in gas bottles. And I certainly do that here in Australia. Even though we don't have this issue, it's still something that I go, well, I do use gas for things, primarily cooking on the barbecue, and it's one of my main. I couldn't cook in my house if there was something wrong with the system in there. Then the barbecue out the back, so Aussie, isn't it? The barbie, just slapping on the barbie, mate. So barbecue is my main backup. So I want to know that I've got gas. So I've got a couple of gas, those LPG gas bottles or whatever they are, gas bottles, and then I've got a big one too. So be thinking about that. Be thinking about that as if you do have that sort of system, if you've got that backup system, to start storing up a little bit of gas up. And if you're reliant on gas, start thinking about redundancies. What else could you use? Do you have a stove? Could you get a stove heater that works off wood stove heater? That's what I'm trying to say. Words and stuff this morning. It's going well. All right, so that's the European situation. La situation Europe. I don't know. I don't speak much French, but anyway. Let's talk about the USA. So if you haven't seen it in the USA, it's hit the mainstream media. This baby formula thing is a big deal. People are freaking out. There are reports that range from 40 to 60% of stockists, so retail stockists, like your Walmart, like your Woolies or whatever, are experiencing massive shortages of baby formula. If they're experiencing the shortages of it, then there are a number of things that are going on. But if they can't actually get it on the shelves, that kind of says that there's a big problem there. So that's obviously starting to cause a little bit of anxiety with people in the US. But that's not the only thing that is a problem. In fact, when I look at it, I would say that's definitely a problem. But there are bigger problems to come. Before I go on to that, though, I've just come across another story that I had, which I want to talk about, because we're back in Europe. This is an important one. The EC, which is the European Commission, is looking at bringing in laws that actually criminalize exactly what I was saying before. Criminalizes buying Russian gas of any sort. So technically speaking, the sanctions went on Russia. Now, there was no, as far as I know, there was no written law that a company could not buy Russian gas. And so that's what's been happening. Companies have been going, okay, well, you've sanctioned Russia, but technically I can still buy this gas. And that's what they're doing, because they're like, hey, we've got to buy this gas. What they're looking at doing now is saying, no, that's illegal. So the sanctions will apply also to the companies, to a German company for buying Russian gas. If they did that, bang, illegal. You're going to get fined. People are going to get thrown in prison, whatever the consequence of it is. So that's important too, because now they're tightening the screws on that system that I'm talking about, which is already clearly in trouble. So that's going to get much, much worse if they decide to pass these sorts of laws. All right, back into the US. What else are they short on? Diesel. Widespread US diesel shortages send send crack spreads to mind-blowing highs. So their prices are shooting through the roof there again, even higher than they have been. Oddly enough, though, I don't think they're at their highest yet. They have been higher. But your average, I think when it was actually higher, the general cost of living was relatively lower. What the problem is was we're seeing super high prices at the Bowser plus cost of living attached to it in the US, combining to be not so good for your average user. Hey Steve, how you going, man? So they're obviously hitting a problem here. Trucking firms are starting to look at this and go like, this is going to be huge. In fact, they're getting together and they're saying, look, we're planning for an imminent diesel shortage in the eastern half of the US, at least. And I've said this before. I mean, US has other mechanisms, but they do rely on truckers a lot. Australia is utterly dependent on truckers. Like, I mean, it would be catastrophic for the US, but if there was another word I could use to describe it beyond catastrophic in Australia, that's what it would be. Without trucks, nothing happens in Australia. Everything, look around your house, all this stuff touched a truck at some stage. The food in your fridge touched a truck at some stage. So unless you're growing your own food in your own backyard, it would have been utterly reliant on a truck. So increased diesel prices are a big deal, because there's a certain point where it just doesn't make sense anymore. But as I said, prices are one thing, shortages are another. So even at exorbitant prices, as long as you can get it, people can still keep doing what they're doing. We can still keep moving. We can still keep this up. We can just increase the price of things and push that price onto the end user. If there's none there, that's a totally different ballgame. That's when you get actually like prices de-link from reality altogether. If you can't actually get something, then the value goes insanely high. Just incidentally, I saw a story, right? I've got old phones and stuff sitting in a little bag out in my shed. And I know there's an old iPod out there. I'm pretty sure there is. I saw some story about Apple has stopped making iPods, and there's people who are selling iPods at the moment on eBay for like tens of thousands of dollars, like $18,000 for an iPod, for an old iPod, because it's like this collector's thing now. It's this insane collector's thing, but it's scarcity, right? It's a scarcity thing that happens. So, it's one of the reasons why gold is so expensive. Scarcity, part thereof. Anyway, imagine now a lettuce. Like, you like lettuce, you like having lettuce in your salad. Well, you can't get lettuce. There are no lettuce to get. So now each lettuce that is out there is worth infinitely more than it was before. So that's the sort of thing that we're looking at with a fuel shortage. Nothing moves. We can't actually get the lettuce out to the people. There's heaps of lettuce, but it can't get to the people. So as far as you're concerned, there is no lettuce. So now a head of lettuce might be worth $10, $50, $100. Who knows how much? That's what I'm talking about, where the value becomes de-linked. It's with extreme supply shortages. Tumbling inventories send US gasoline and diesel prices to fresh record high. So it's the tumbling inventory that is the problem here. It's that actual supply. And remember 3 weeks ago? No, it was maybe a bit more. Anyway, it was like 3 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago. But anyway, Biden came out, released a whole heap of the strategic oil reserves out into the market to ease that price. Good on you, Uncle Joe. And I said at the time, as any like staunch sort of capitalist or libertarian would have looked at and said, this does not seem like a great idea. You are trying to appease people right now by easing price at the Bowser, by releasing strategic fuel reserves. Now, this sort of stuff is supposed to be kept for in extremis emergencies like war, okay? Not because people are going, my petrol's costing more. That sucks, but you also created the system that increased that. So think about other ways rather than just flooding the market temporarily, because are you going to be able to pull that out? And what we've seen in the market So a lot of these reports are actually going into the deeper what's happening in the market, where the US has come out, or other countries, West as well, has come out and said, look, we're not getting oil off Russia anymore, and we just need you to do it. So they put US, one story, US put a lot of pressure on Brazil, said, hey, just start pumping out more oil. If you could, that'd be great, do it. And Brazil has come back and said, no, we're not doing that. US like, well, you have to, like, we need this oil. And they're like, A, you're not the boss of us, and B, no, we can't actually do that. Like, even if we wanted to do that, it's actually not, we're not able to do that right now. Not like that, at least. So, yeah, I think there was maybe a few assumptions that were going on with these huge decisions. So people have made these huge decisions. People like the White House staff have made these huge decisions that have huge impacts on the world, on millions and millions of people, and based those decisions off some assumptions like, oh yeah, we'll be able to pick up oil production. Well, we can't. We can't just snap our fingers and increase oil production. That's not going to happen. So these prices are up. I think they're going to probably stay up. They may even get worse. But fuel shortages are a big thing. Why does this affect us here in Australia? Well, we have a strategic oil reserve. Australia has a strategic, I'll try and say this the exact right way because the words matter. Australia has a strategic oil reserve. I'm not saying Australia has a strategic oil reserve in Australia, because it is not in Australia. It is in the US. The same way that many countries, including Australia, keep their gold reserves in London, Australia keeps its oil reserves in the US. Now, that's a problem, especially if they're hurting. So if they're in need of oil reserves and they don't have any, do you think they will go, oh, we won't use Australia's though? Of course they're going to use ours. They're going to use up ours and say, hey, we'll pay you back later. We're good for it. Remember that. The other issue there is if we need it and we need it in a hurry, it's going to take time to get to us. And it's oil reserves. It's not petrol. It's not diesel. It needs to be refined. So there's another process that needs to happen there. So yeah, we've got some, but I don't know if we're ever going to see that. So start thinking about that again. The effects of Australia having a fuel shortage. We don't know at the moment, and I'm not suggesting that we do or will in any time in the near future. But I would encourage you to think about what the effects would be for Australia and what the effects would be for you personally. If you're someone who is reliant on fuel and you need it to get around and you need it to do things, or you maybe even need it to survive, I don't know how you're utilizing it, but you might want to store up a little bit. This certainly, something that I do, I store it up within my mutual assistance group. We have been building our stores over time. We primarily use diesel, so we can store it for an amount of time, and then we rotate that. So we utilize it, and as we utilize it, we try and top it back up. So this is something that I would encourage you as a prepared individual, for somebody who is prepared for the future, no matter what it is, to think about, to maybe start storing up. Maybe even just have as little as 10 litres or 20 litres, have a jerry full of petrol or diesel stored up in your garage or in an outdoor area somewhere where it's safe. And if you are using petrol, making sure that you're putting additives to it so that it can last longer. Petrol goes bad after probably, I wouldn't really want to store petrol for longer than 3 months personally. Diesel can go out to probably about 12 months, and then you can use additives to make it maybe go longer, but 12 months, I just rotate it. So even years ago when I was using a petrol vehicle, I would have a series of jerrys, and what I would do is when my car went down to a certain part, halfway, I would put a jerry in, put that in the back of the car. Next time I'm driving around, pull into the servo, I'd top my car up, but top the jerry up and take it back home. So that's how I do it, and I keep rotating those. So that's a recommendation I have for people as far as fuel is concerned. So US is looking like fuel shortages are going to hit them. They've obviously got some pretty serious supply chain issues, and the big one, what exemplifies that, I think, is the baby formula. And I think that's a big deal because, say whatever you will about baby formula, like me personally, I am an advocate for people to breastfeed, but not everyone can. Not everyone has the ability. So baby formula is important, but it is also important because it's got the word baby in it. Anything to do with children and pets sends people mental. Um, just watch John Wick and you can understand that. But like this is the sort of thing that can send people, nuclear very, very quickly. So it's a big deal. All right. Last one I'm going to talk about today, California to hire water cops as residents ignore nuisance conservation plea amid mega drought. So the western part of the US at the moment is in a mega drought. It's a huge drought. I'm not sure how huge. I haven't actually looked at the numbers or anything on it. It seems pretty serious. I just find it as an Australian a little hard to take anyone else's drought seriously. I'm like that arrogant Australian who always thinks that our natural disasters are orders of magnitude worse than anyone else's, but they're not. All right, but we do experience droughts here in Australia. It's quite a common thing. I'm just surprised that a country that has a huge amount of the world's fresh water supply in it is hurting for water. There's parts of that country that are hurting for water. Australia has under 1% of the world's fresh water supply within our entire country, but we have 10% of the population that they do as well. So whatever. But I know moving around water isn't exactly super simple, but it just strikes me as interesting that there's a disparity here between the West and the East of the United States of America. United being the operative word there. All right. So anyway, they're in this mega drought. They're hurting. California's come out. The governor of California, Newsom, who, by all accounts, as far as I can see, I don't know the guy. I've seen some of the policies and things that he's done, and my professional opinion is that the guy's a dickhead. He doesn't seem to be doing anything that makes any sense to me on the surface. But I don't live there. He's not my governor, not my circus, not my monkey, right? But that's my outside opinion as an Australian. Feel free to argue with me if you wish. Anyway, he's come out and he said, hey, you all got to conserve water now. I remember getting this as a kid in Australia, stage 1, 2, 3, even 4. They're making up some arbitrary system of how you can and can't use water. And we relatively stick to it. You can only water your lawns every other day. You can only wash your car with a bucket. Take shorter showers, all this sort of stuff. It's pretty run of the mill for Australians. Americans, I don't think maybe haven't experienced it as much. And so now they're being told to conserve water and they're like, whatever, my lawn needs to be green. So anyway, they're going to hire cops to go out and enforce this sort of stuff. This is water cops. All right. This is what we're getting to, as a world. I've been a long believer of this. You may have heard me talk about it before, but for at least the last decade, maybe even longer, I have strongly believed that the wars that we're going to fight in the future are going to be over water in particular. Water, maybe food, there might be some other resources, but particularly water. I think it all comes back down to water. And if we can't understand how important water is, it'll be thrust in our face within 5 to 10 years' time. Water is fundamental to life. And this is something that I will harp on about to no end. And I think that you need to really think about this in your life. How do we secure our own water supply? How do we capture rain? How do we keep water in our lands? How do we, utilize that water in the best way possible? This is something that we all really need to think about, I think, and I would invite you to do so as much as possible. So this is a troubling thing to me when a government is using our taxpayer money to create enforcers to stop us using a resource which is an inherent right to life. That's the summation that I'm looking at here. I think it's a really troubling trend here, and the one thing that we can do to get around this and not worry about it is to secure our own water. Okay, if we're using our own water that we secured, I mean, yes, they can create other issues. They can say rainwater is illegal. They can, requisition people's dams and stuff like that. That's all stuff that has happened in the past and can happen in the future again. But just from a personal perspective, I'm still going to work towards securing my own water supply. So, the place that I live at the moment, I have some stored up water, but I've got obviously tap water. I've got filtration processes. I've got rain tank in there, and there's a well actually in there, dug in there. So 3 different sources of water. My kind of bug out location, 2 running creeks on it. So water supply there is something that I always think about. It's probably the first thing that I think about, and I don't often talk about it in depth because for me it's just such like a basic thing. It's like, well, this should be the first thing on everyone's mind. Don't you wake up and the first thing you do is drink water? If the answer to that is no, then you should start doing that. But I don't want to tell anyone to do what to do, but you might want to think about doing that. But this is the first thing on my mind, essentially, is what I'm trying to say here, is water. So think about that. Really start to look at that. Think about these processes. This information that I'm putting out here, I'm trying to not add to the doom and gloom and say, the world is crashing, the sky is falling. The reason I'm putting this information out to you is to try and empower you to actually think about this sort of stuff in your life. And if you are securing your water, your food supply, your energy supply, then good on you. I really want to say thank you very much, because what you're doing is actually not only just helping yourself, you're helping people around you, you're helping your family, you're helping your community, you're actually helping the world from a certain perspective. So thank you very much. And if you're not doing that, then I invite you to do that. And I would really encourage you to go out there and start doing that and taking control of your own life, being more a self-reliant human being. And the more of us that can do that, the better, safer we will make the world. So keep cracking on, guys. Keep prepping. Keep on keeping on. Stay safe out there. And until next time, Semper Paratus.